And I said, you know, I just don't know that I want to do this for very long. So I went down and talked to the Navy recruiter. My family, my dad retired from the Navy, and so I was familiar with the terminology. My dad being on a ship, and he would be gone for a year or two, sometimes at a time. But I was familiar with that. I remember my dad was he pushed boots in a boot camp in Illinois. And I remember walking as a young kid with my dad. I'd go with him to the boot camp, and he would march his platoon around, and I would run to the back of the line and try to be part of the group. You know, about 7 or 8 years old. But that's one of the memories that I have of my dad pushing boots through boot camp. Well, that summer of 1970, I went and talked to the recruiter. I made a commitment to them. I went and had a physical, and then I had a car wreck. And then so the Navy recruiter says, well, we're just going to delay your boot camp and let you just see how you're doing from your car wreck. Well, so instead of leaving right away to go to boot camp, the Vietnam War was on, and so they had been requiring you to register and join the military at certain points. And so I was ready to go, and so I just delayed till the fall and went into boot camp at Orlando, Florida. And so I spent 11 weeks in boot camp. I was just randomly selected to be part of a 50-state flag team. I spent 11 weeks in boot camp, and so they occasionally, instead of giving you rifles to carry, they would give you flags. And my particular platoon was selected in boot camp to be in parades. And so we were given flags, and we would carry the flags in parades and things like that for folks in the state. And I didn't know really what I was getting myself into, and I think I grew up and kind of embraced this idea of I'm responsible for me now. I don't have a mom or dad walking me through this. So I sat down in the chair in boot camp, and they buzzed your head, just right down the middle. You may not believe this, but I had a lot of hair, curly dark hair, almost a fro. It was buzzed off and fell into the floor, and I said, "Whoa, what have I done?" I just couldn't believe, what was happening to me. And I said, I already want to go home, but I made it through that 11 weeks. You're tested. We were tested for certain aptitudes, like, oh, you have a strong mechanical aptitude. Let's move you in that direction. And so they started testing us and training us. The normal things you would expect in a boot camp: lots of marching, kitchen duties, learning to take care of your hygiene, your clothes, being up and ready to go early in the morning, those kind of things. That was part of my experience in boot camp. The test revealed that I did have a strong aptitude for mechanical things, and so they moved me to into repair schools for teletypes. Those are things you wouldn't even know what they are these days. It's all computer, but the teletypes were mechanical machines that they would send the signal, radio signals over, and that's how we sent and received our messages. And so I was directed into the radio room, the communications rooms, and I actually became a communications technician before it was all over, and we would encrypt messages and decrypt messages that were sent over teletype. I was given, they started a security clearance on me, just checking my background, what kind of person I was, what kind of family I came from, and was given a top secret clearance so that I could handle the cryptographic material that was there. But so from boot camp, I went to a communications training camp in Pensacola, Florida. I spent 6 months there, and they says, well, we're going to send you to a teletype repair school. And so then they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia, and I did real well there with teletype machines. And they says, well, let's send you to cryptographic repair school in Vallejo, California. So I went there, spent another 3 or 4 months, and in the process of going through these schools, I began to direct me. Says, okay, now you have communication skills and you have repair skills. We're going to put you on the USS Enterprise, where you can take care of the breakdowns and the communication and things like that. So I found out when I was in California, Vallejo, California, that I'd be going to the USS Enterprise. And I think we have slides running through here in the back, and I'll try to give you an idea, a sense of what I was experiencing as a young kid. Remember, I'm just now turning 18 years old. And you guys, you're not far from that. You're just years. You'll be graduating from high school in just a few years. You'll be taking on responsibility for your own life, the choices that you make. And I think I grew up a lot that year. And my experience as a young person in the military was good. I look back at it as a 64-year-old man and say it was good. It was good for me that I had these experiences. So here I am, been assigned to the USS Enterprise once I complete my training. I've been in the Navy for almost a year at this point. I have a 4-year contract with the with Navy, with a recruiter. And so a quarter of that time was spent just in training. So then the USS Enterprise had already been sent to Vietnam, and they had already been in the Gulf of Tonkin. If you guys have studied the Vietnam War, that would be familiar with you. It's just off of the Gulf of Tonkin is just off the coast. I think I have some slides coming through that show you Vietnam, a map of Vietnam. So just be on the lookout for that.
You want to go directly to it?
Sure, that would be good. But this would be North Vietnam and then South Vietnam. And the Gulf of Tonkin is our ship. We just go back and forth along the coastline there. We weren't even in sight of land, but for for me, my experience was I was in communications. I sat at a teletype. It would barely fit on this table. It was so big and clunky. But I would sit at that teletype and read the messages that the officers in charge, the admirals, the Navy operation would move from ship to ship as the ship would go in and do its month or two service, going up and down. And so that admiral needed briefing, and I was given the clearance to put all his briefing notes together. As a young kid, you're given lots of experience in the Navy that you wouldn't get anywhere else in life, and that's a good thing. The ship was doing flight operations in support of the Army and the Navy projects that they had going on. Our planes would go out sometimes 24 hours a day. They would be landing and taking off. And I had a bunk where they stacked us 3 high. I had a bunk up in the front, so every time a jet would be taking off, and they would be loaded with bombs, and everything would be pushed to the max, and so you get this big thunder of the braking system, the launching system, and you just like this. And the first time I heard it, I jumped out of bed. Nobody else was excited, but we're sinking. I didn't know what was going on. The same thing happened when they dropped those chains. Those chains would be as big as one of these tables, just a link in a chain. And when they went down, that ship just went like this. And so there are lots of neat experiences that I had being on that ship. I remember the first couple of breakfasts that I had. We would be sitting in a room not much bigger than this. There's 5,000 men on the ship. We're eating breakfast, and they're rolling in the bombs and pushing them in between the spaces, getting the bombs ready, screwing the fins on the bombs. And of course, they didn't make them live until they were ready to launch them. But it was kind of a big surprise to me. I said, "So wow, do you have to put them next to my breakfast like this?" You know, it's kind of frightening. But it was a new experience for me, being so young and given so much responsibility. As a veteran, it's a great opportunity for you as a young person to grow up, to take responsibility for your own choices and your own decisions. But so I'm completing my training, and they fly me on a Air Force plane to Alaska, over Japan, and down to the Philippines. And everything I own is in one bag, a green duffel bag, and I'm dragging it along like this. We land at an Air Force base in the Philippines. That we take a bus ride that you wouldn't believe. The person with the loudest horn and the biggest vehicle has the right-of-way. And so they are just flying around these little mountain roads, not at all what we would expect, like a freeway or anything like that. And they dropped me off at the Navy base in Subic Bay. I see my ship way over in the distance. They have small little cabs, and they took me over there. I'm going onto the ship for the very first time, and it's huge. It's a quarter of a mile long. It's very long, and I'm looking at this ship, and I'm trying to remember, do I salute the officer first? Do I salute the flag first? Where will I go once I get on? You know, and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten since they put us on the plane to drive us over there. So I'm just a young kid trying to figure this out. And I get on the ship, and there's someone there to meet me and escort me to where I needed to be. And I spend 2 tours on the Vietnam, coast of Vietnam. The ship went into dry dock. That was a great experience. I was single and lived on the ship while I was in dry dock. There wasn't many of the guys did that. Single guys did that. Some others, they had family, of course, brought their families there. You see on one of these pictures, there's the Enterprise in dry dock, but they were just doing modifications to put a new plane on the ship. They had 100 planes, 100 jet planes on this. Hangars going up and hangar bays going up and down. They could take the planes down into the ship to work on them, and so that was kind of neat, interesting to see all this working together. They were doing a lot of maintenance on the ship. The engines would be turned up and going, loud noises. One of the things that I got from that was a little bit of a hearing loss while I was on the ship. But sometimes I would work for 1 month, 2 months, and not even see daylight. If I was on a 12-hour shift, they got their money's worth from us in that while we were at sea, we worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so you would have a long day. And so if you were on the night tour, you may not see daylight for a long time. But we always heard the planes going, taking off and landing. It was we would have up to 200 men in compartments. Men that would put their dirty clothes at the end of the rack, and you can imagine what 200 men would smell like. I'm just trying to give you a visual here. But we would have our laundry done once a week. We would have a nylon mesh bag at the end of our rack that we slept. They called them a rack. You can see, sometimes you'll see this picture coming through where we're stacked 3 high. We did get breaks from time to time when our ship would come into the Philippines from being in Vietnam or in the Gulf of Tonkin, and we would go to the Philippines, restock, resupply. We would go to Hong Kong. We would go to Singapore, and these were great experiences to see that part of the world as a young person. So I spent 2 years and on the ship. Then my last year, I was sent to Florida, and there was an antenna array, and because I was in communications intelligence, we would listen to Cuba. There, the Army would listen to the Army frequencies, the Navy would listen to the Navy frequencies and stuff. And so my last year was spent in Florida in a Navy, combined Navy, Army, Marines kind of installation. But that was my experience as a young person. I haven't regretted it. As I look back as an older person, I say that was a really valuable time for me. So thanks for the chance to tell my story to you.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Good morning. How many people here are thinking about joining the military, maybe? I've got a couple of them in there, 3 or 4. Does anybody know what the meaning of sacrifice is? What do you think sacrifice is? Give up? Give up?
Give something away.
Give up something for a good cause.
For me, sacrifice was biscuits, cornbread. When you leave and you go to another country, you don't get sweet tea. You don't get biscuits from McDonald's. There's no such a thing. You know, there's many different forms of sacrifice, but for me, that was part of it. I was a 63 Bravo. I was a mechanic in the Army. I traveled to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic, Fort Jackson, South Carolina for AIT, where I learned my trade. Then I went to South Korea, where over there I learned we got it made. The kids over there, the people over there, in the farm, nothing, maybe $800 a year. Besides doing that, I volunteered for many things. One was to help taking care of orphanages, and I brought some pictures, and I'll show you. But we would take kids in for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. We put a bathroom in an orphanage. These kids lined up, 100 kids deep, to use the bath, not to use it, but to flush it. They've never seen a flushing toilet in their life. At 17, 18 years old, that was pretty neat for me. I really enjoyed that. Volunteer. I was bored. Volunteer. I volunteered to, one time, I didn't know what I was getting into. Wound up going to a small island in South Korea called Jeju and learned how to rappel, Australian style, face first. You run right down a sheer cliff, rappelling. Did that for 3 days, had 4 days on an island like Hawaii by yourself. You know, some things were good, some things were bad. I volunteered for jungle training, wound up going to Costa Rica. Hot, sticky, just, it was horrible. But I enjoyed it. I look back and thinking, you know, that wasn't too bad. Desert training in Fort Ord, California, that was pretty neat, learning how to survive in the desert. I grew up in Habersham County. If y'all know Miss Dillard, Miss Shirley Dillard, Donna Dillard.
Miss Shirley.
Miss Shirley.
Don Shirley.
Not sure. I get the name from
You getting her name?
Anyway, I grew up close to her and couldn't wait to leave this place. Couldn't wait to get out of here. After living all around the world, all around the country, I realized how great we got in this place. How great this area we live in is. We grew up on the Lake Russell Wildlife Management area. When I went to basic training, got off the bus, they had Coke machines, they had meals, anything you wanted. I thought this is too good to be true. Then they put us out in a field with all this gear, and we had to crawl under barbed wire, go over fences, climb these high walls. I had a blast. I got in so much trouble. I was enjoying myself too much. It was like going fishing. You know, you crawl under the fence, you go over the fence, you go to the creek. So I wound up getting put to the side. Wasn't allowed to participate in a lot of that stuff. But that's just from growing up in this area, being privileged with that, helping. But you were able, these other guys that were there, they couldn't do it. They got scared at heights. That's where the brothership comes in when you're in the military. You help them through their fears, help them cross that creek, go over that wall. It all pays off in the end if you're like these gentlemen. I never was in war, but when you are, you need to have somebody beside you that will help you and push you, and you can help them and push them. It's like sports on steroids. You know, your life depends on it. So, to me, all of my oldest son, he served in Iraq. My grandfather, he served in World War II. I've got 2 more sons coming up. They're planning on going into service. You It's the best thing in the world you can do. You go in at 18, you go through basic, you learn a skill, which now it could be almost anything. You can request to go anywhere in the world. You don't have to go to Iraq or Afghanistan. You can go to Hawaii. You can go to Alaska. I've been to Alaska. I've been to Japan, Hawaii, Japan. Flying into Japan, that's the craziest thing in the world you ever seen. You're flying to a major city with buildings all around you, and you're in this huge airplane, and you're like, oh my Lord, what's going to happen here? Where am I going to land this thing? Or flying into Alaska, and you see this beautiful mountain and snow with the ocean there, and you're flying into this, just things you would never dream of doing, you know. And I'm going on and on about this. I'm trying to fit everything in. I wish you you had more time, but it's what you make of it. I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie to you. I studied Hangul. I learned the Korean language. I got my secret clearances. I was going to work in intelligence to monitor North Korea. My duty stations would have been Japan, South Korea, Hawaii, or Alaska. Who wouldn't want to live in those 4 places? They're just beautiful countries. When I left, didn't graduate high school. I took my GED when I was overseas. The day that my graduating class graduated here in Habersham, I was at a Buddha monk temple on top of a mountain, overlooking just the most beautiful scenery you'd ever seen, eating dinner with these guys. And I wish I was back here graduating with everyone, but what were they going to do? The next day they were going to go to Panama City, Florida. Oh well, I didn't miss any of that. Actually, when I came back, someone was asking me, have you ever been to some place in Panama City? And I'm like, I don't remember that. They said, oh, it's on Boulevard Street. I felt kind of stupid at the time. I didn't even know Panama City, Florida. I didn't even know what that was. I've been to Panama City in Panama in jungle training, and then I got to thinking, well, they've never been any further than Panama City, Florida. Then I kind of felt sorry for them. I didn't feel so stupid then. But it's really a good experience to learn about other culture, other people, the way other people live, and just like I said, just how great we've got it in this country. You have no idea. I mean, it is. Like I said, when we got over there, the guys, we get sea rations. Back then now it's MREs, but you'd get a box and have canned ham. Biscuits, but every one, whatever your meal was, chicken a la king. Man, that was horrible. But anyway, each box had sugar, coffee, cocoa, jelly, what else? Chocolate bar. Anyway, the guys threw all this stuff away. They threw it in the garbage. They didn't drink coffee. They didn't want sugar. I took this stuff and I saved it, and I'd have big piles of it. And if we can get a picture up here, I want to show you guys. I would go. We'd spend months out in the field, no shower, no bath, and these kids, they would follow my truck around. They knew me. So these guys would line up. I'd tell one of them, "You go tell your mom I need a bath." They'd have to boil water in big pots. I'd say, "Tell the other guys, tell your mom I need something to eat," and I would barter. I'd give them this bag of packs of sugar and cocoa and coffee. Their family couldn't afford to buy this in a year. They didn't, half the time didn't even have it. The parents drank chip nut bark. That was their coffee, chicory. So I bartered all of this stuff that we threw away. My friends took for granted. They threw this stuff away. I found a way to use it, made these kids so happy, never had chocolate bars, And I guess it was kind of selfish because I was doing it to get a bath and to wash my clothes, but I never stank when I was in the field. My clothes stayed clean, and I was invited into their homes and houses and treated, pretty well while I was there. Some of the other pictures we would bring. This is in the mess hall. Every year at Christmas and Thanksgiving, we'd go down to the orphanage and grab some kids and bring them to the mess hall. We'd have, whatever, Thanksgiving, Christmas, buy them a jacket, buy them shoes, buy them socks, things that they wouldn't normally get throughout the year. Some of the other things, to show you kind of what it looks like over there. Some of the pictures are this. Those 20 degrees, that's some of the villages, you know, where you're just walking through, surrounded by, they're just stacked on top of each other. It snows. It's 30 below zero over there. A lot of snow, a lot of rain in the monsoons. But just some of the nicest people in the world you'd ever meet. The elderly men there, they would group together, kind of like our guys would. You didn't want to walk down the hills too much either when it snowed. It was kind of dangerous. But we would go out and help them plant their rice fields. Just a gesture to show, that we're all in this together. And afterwards, they would sit down and cook you a meal. Anytime I would go anywhere, I really never paid for anything when I was over there. I sent all my money back home because everybody knew me. Everybody knew my group, and they fed us whatever we needed. They took care of us. A lot of the kids over there wanted to come here to go to college. So I would, what we call Katusas, they were over, all of the Korean guys would have to join the military and spend so much time in with us. These guys were college educated, but they would, I would go home with, that was Chong, my buddy Chong there, go home to Seoul or wherever they were from and teach them. They learned proper English, but that didn't work when you got here. No one understood proper English, so they were kind of set behind. I taught them what to expect when they came here to go to college. I would cook French fries and hamburgers and make them sick as a dog. They would just get so sick. But this is what you're going to have to eat when you get there, and kind of got their bodies accustomed to it. So they took care of me. Like I said, I didn't pay for anything. We just had a blast. But I guess the point I'm making is it's if you want to join, you want to go in, it's what you make it. You can complain every day that you're there and say, I hate this and this is crazy, I don't like this, or you can get out there and try to make a difference. And like I said, just the simple gesture of learning their language. We would go on tours like, where's the one that you come in the uniform? The dress and uniform. These guys would go on tours. We would go on tours to places, and I'd slip out the back door. They would go into the big city, and we would have lunch. I would go down the alley and find the smallest little restaurant I could find, and go in. Ask her, greet them, what was good to eat, what are you eating in the back? I was speaking in their language. They would welcome me in, feed me, no charge. These guys complained and fussed the whole time they were there and eating cold tourist food or whatever was there. Back then, there was no McDonald's or anything overseas. Now you've got all those luxuries. You got internet. We didn't, like him talking about the teletype, we had the Mars. That's how we communicated back home through radios that were transmitted from Korea to Japan to Hawaii to California. My grandfather was W4GGZ in Cornelia, and he would intercept the radio transmissions from the veterans from the military and pass those messages on to the families. Now, my son was in Iraq, and I seen him. He would text me. I'm like, "What are you doing texting? You're in a war." I said, "Send me a letter." He said, "I hadn't figured out that post office thing." I'm like, what do you mean the post office thing?" So he would send me pictures and text messages, and that was just the strangest thing in the world to me from when I was in. I was a specialist fourth class. I learned, I was a light vehicle mechanic and power generator mechanic. It was very boring. I'm seeing if there's anything else. I was there during when President Reagan was president. The only picture I've got, but that was him leaving the base. That's me saluting at Fort Papa 1 on the DMZ with North Korea. He came up to visit us when he toured South Korea. Everyone was ducking behind the walls. North Korea, they're communists. We're still at war with them. And you don't just stand up and look at North Korea. He was standing up looking, he wanted to see everything. They were trying to poke Mr. President, you got to get, he didn't care. He didn't care. He was there. He wanted them to know, this is America. I'm the president, and we got this. He had no fear. I really enjoyed that. Those are a couple of things. One of them is the Army Accommodation Medal I got, which is the, I think it's the top one, ARCOM, from when I was in Korea. And, you know, those are great to have. I had a captain straight out of college, and he was over my unit. And officers come in, and they're straight out of college. They get their rank. I've been there. I'm just a specialist. A couple of years, we're having an inspection, and I've got these 3 rows of ribbons. He's got the one that says he's in the service. And he's just all over me. What's this? What's this? What's this one? You know, did you go buy those at the PX? No, sir. I've been doing that. I've been working hard since I've been here. And they just can't understand how you can accumulate so much stuff and just be a private or a specialist. But like I said, I volunteered. One thing, and I hope I don't gross anybody out, body recovery. I volunteered to rappel into a battle site. We learned in the military how to shoot an azimuth with a compass. And you can map out a location or whatever, but we would rappel in after a battle. If there was anyone injured, I performed triage, try to stabilize them, make sure that, you know, if they had a sucking chest wound, how to do that, or stabilize the bones and get them out. But then we recovered the bodies. But we would draw a map of the battlefield and show where everyone was laying. 50 years later, they could go back and look at my map and tell exactly what happened on that location, as far as where everybody was at, what direction everything came from. To me, that was exciting. I mean, you jump on a helicopter, rappel down, save somebody's life, haul out some guys and draw up a map. That was, for me, that was fun. But being a mechanic was boring, so that's why I learned Korean and got my secret clearances and tried to go into intelligence. And if you want to go in, the sky's the limit. I don't think anyone could go wrong doing it. Just look, if you go in at 18, you're 22 when you get out. 22 years old. You've got all the money you need to go to college. It's paid for. You can go to college while you're in there. You'll learn a job while you're in there. And most of all, you learn, like I said, just how great you really got it here. I don't think there's much else except for the party we had. This is kind of gross. Sergeant Lopez. It's from Hawaii. Everybody ever heard of a Hawaiian luau cooking a pig in the ground?
Yeah.
We did that. We cooked the pig in the ground. Stacked up firewood, put rocks on it, put cabbage on it, wrapped that hog in chicken wire, laid it on the cabbage, covered it up with more cabbage and a tarp, and then put dirt on it. And everybody's like, I'm not eating something that's dead and been buried. I'm not going to put that in my mouth. The next day we opened it up and the meat just fell off the bone. I almost didn't get it. I stayed with that pig. I killed it. I caught it. I almost didn't even get a bite of it. Everybody was fighting over the meat. But it's something that I never would have experienced here. Never in a million years. Because Sergeant Lopez was from Hawaii and he shared his traditions with us. Well, I guess y'all can tell I like it. But anyway, like I said, now if you want to go in, you can request where you want to go, what you want to do. He was talking about the aptitude test. You score high enough on that, the sky's the limit. You know, you can do anything, go anywhere, male, female, whatever you want to do. You don't have to go to fight. My son's very smart. My oldest son, very intelligent, scored real high. He went in infantry. I didn't think that was a good idea. He said, if I'm going to go in, I want to be the one knocking on your door. You know, and, that was his choice. That was what he liked to do. He did that. It's one of the hardest jobs out there. Your life expectancy is very short. But now he come out and went in the military police. Now he works as a contractor. But that was what he wanted to do, even though he could do any job he wanted to. And I hope my other boys go too. I guess that's it. Anybody got any questions or anything? And I'll quit talking and let somebody else. No questions? Okay, I'm through.
Well, it was my privilege to serve in the Army for 22 years. It was actually 21 years and 7 months and 13 days. But when you're having that much fun, who keeps up with it, you know? But I was really in the Army for 20 years before that, because my father was in the Army before I was. And so I grew up in a military family. And I also reared, I guess is the correct word, my 2 children in a military family, moved them around. If you think it's hard to meet new people when you move to a new school next year or when you came into middle school, my children moved schools just about every year. So, you know, as they came up as a military family, having moved around. I am a Vietnam era veteran. The war in Vietnam, there were actually military combat units in Vietnam from about 1965 until 1975. But there were advisors in Vietnam even as early as the early 1950s. Who was still in Vietnam in the 1950s? The French were there until 1954, but we didn't learn a thing from them. We went over there and made the same mistakes 10 years later. But the French, you know, were thrown out of Vietnam in 1954. I was in the Army from 1965 until 1987. I was commissioned in the Army. I was an officer. I was commissioned through the ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps program at Clemson University. I retired as a lieutenant colonel. I served 2 one-year combat tours in Vietnam. Started out, well, I was in the infantry after Mr. Meyer's introduction there. I was in the infantry. When I was in the infantry, that means I wasn't smart enough to get in the Navy. I wasn't smart enough to get in the Air Force. I wasn't smart enough to get a real job in the Army. I frittered away my mom and dad's money getting an electrical engineering degree from Clemson University that I never used a day in my life. But I know when it's your age and when my age then, it was hard for me to decide what I really wanted to do. In addition, after I went in the Army, I went through the basic schools that officers go through. I went through the airborne school, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. I figured guys like Mr. Huey, I had a better chance jumping than I did landing. So I went through airborne school, went through Ranger school. Then I went to my first tour in Vietnam. I was a platoon leader, means I had about 30 or 40 people working for me, some of whom weren't a whole lot older than you. Some other, what I'll call highlights of my career, I was stationed at Camp Merrill over in Dahlonega for 2 tours for a total of about 5 years on 2 different occasions. As they were scrolling through these pictures on the wall here, I saw a picture of Willard Langdon. Sergeant Langdon taught me a lot of things. Some of them I could even tell you about here in this gathering, but most of them I couldn't. But Willard Langdon's a great guy, and I saw his picture, you know, as they were scrolling through up there. There were about 2,700,000 Americans that served in Vietnam. And of that number, there were about 58,000 of them that gave their lives in Vietnam. And I noticed I didn't say anybody took their lives, they gave them. There were 11,465 people killed in Vietnam that were less than 20 years old. How old are you? 14?
15.
There were nearly over 11,000 people killed in Vietnam that were under 20 years old. So It's a great life for some, not a good life for everybody, but I think everyone should take advantage of their opportunity to serve, to give back to this great country that we have, that we're privileged to live in. I won't take a lot of time telling you what I did in Vietnam, because I want Mr. Huey to have his chance to speak about his experiences. I'll just say that I spent most of my time out in the woods. We would have called it the boonies, but I never saw an air conditioner. I didn't know there was such a thing in Vietnam, but we stayed out in the woods for the most of the time that I was there, eating meals out of the cans, the sea rations that he mentioned, that Mr. Myers mentioned. Spent a lot of time in other places. Spent some time in Washington, D.C. Just a lot of places that I had the opportunity to see that I probably wouldn't have seen, and experiences I wouldn't have had I not been in the military for those 22 years. So I'm going to not share any of the other experiences with you, and let's get to have time to have some questions. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. But we're going to now be on kind of a tight schedule, so I'll let Jim go, Mr. Huey go.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
We got minutes.
So, yeah.
I know most of you guys have seen you for 2 years. This is the third year. So my name is Jim Huey, and I grew up in Wyoming, went to high school there, and then graduated from Texas Christian University, TCU, and then decided that after 4 years of school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do either. So I had the opportunity to be tested for the Air Force, and one of the things that they as they see how you scored, I scored well enough to get in the pilot program. So I just said, well, I'd like to do that. So that's kind of how I set my sail, and we went that direction. I got married about that time to my wife, Alice, who is, believe it or not, is still in the picture. She's still putting up with me after 52 years. So anyway, this is the tail end of it. This is my wife, Alice. My son who graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1990. He was on he actually flew the P3, not P3s, E2 Hawkeyes that had the big AWACS dome on it. That's another story. So benefits already been talked about quickly. We did have good pay, served my country, health benefits. My children were born, a son and daughter, when I was. The bad thing is, my son was 3 months old before I saw him, but through the Mars program, I got to find out from people at home that he was born, and so both of them cost me $2.50 to the base hospital to pay for. So you can imagine, you know what children cost today to have them. Unbelievable amount of money. So that was one of the benefits. Go ahead. This is another picture of Vietnam. Okay, I flew the B-52. I had 129 missions, and if you saw my air medal, it was because you get one for every 25 missions, and then after 100, which I'll show you a picture in a minute, very quickly, they give you a big ceremony and bring the fire trucks out and douse you with water. I've had 129 missions, all out of Utapao, Thailand, Guam, or Okinawa, Kadena Air Force Base in Kadena. B-52, as you can see, this is a general picture of it, but it weighs 414 pounds fully loaded, and it is able to carry many bombs. Of course, the bomb bay is the biggest thing in the middle, but it also has on both sides bombs that can increase its capability of dropping cruise missiles. Well, there we go. Go back to the picture. Is it just going by time?
Yeah, you just tell me when to move it.
Go back to there we go, thanks. The airplane itself is very interesting, I think, and I think you might find it. See, up there, it looks like it's 168 feet wide, and 180 feet wide, 160 feet long, and the tail is 47 feet 10 inches. You think, hey, there's a lot of room in there, but it's basically all bomb bay from there to there. on board the airplane, we had 6 people, 2 pilots, co-pilot, an aircraft commander, a navigator who tries to figure out where you're going, a radar navigator. We didn't have computers in those days. The radar navigator drops the bombs, and then probably one of the most unheralded guys, by the way, the navigators, here's the pilot and co-pilot. The navigator, radar navigator are right underneath them. And right behind the pilots is one guy called the EW, Electronic Warfare Officer. He gets a lot of ribbing because he doesn't, you think he doesn't do much, because he has funny job to do, like check some of the bombs and all that. But basically, he gets a lot of ribbing on every crew. But when you go into a combat site where they're shooting SAMs at you, surface-to-air missiles, that's the danger, the really worst danger we ever faced. When they shoot that, he is the one that looks down, and he can tell when a SAM locks onto you. That means, hey, we see him up there, we're going to send this missile up and blast him out of the sky. He can tell that. He can tell when the missile has been fired and tell what direction it's coming from where you are right then. So at that particular time, he's the most important guy in your life, so you don't get him too bad. And then we also, in those days, had a gunner at the very back of the airplane, could shoot down enemy planes if anybody was stupid enough to get that close to you. Nowadays, they only have 5 members on it. The airplane itself, prototype, 1949. That's almost as old as I am. And they're talking now of using it into 2050. But some of you guys might fly that someday. It holds, like I say, it's 415,000 pounds, 8 engines. You'll see, if you've had time to see a quick picture of it. It has 8 Pratt & Whitney engines. The newer model had 17,000 pounds of thrust per engine. So that's a that's a lot of power. It didn't have reversers like commercial airplanes have. It did have a drag chute when you would land. We would use, because of the weight of it, it took the whole runway to take off and a lot of the runway to land. And so you had a little parachute that would pop out when you landed. But one of the interesting things is we had fuel tanks. You can see on tip tanks on both sides. We would give you increased range. And also, see this funny little training wheel, we call them, or outriggers. And when you're fully loaded, and with all, this is all fuel. All your whole wing is full of fuel. So when you were on the ground and when you're fully loaded, they'd have these little training wheels so the wings could rest on that. And when you took off, they would come up, and some people say there was as much as 15 feet difference from the time that you took off to the time they got fully extended. That's what they say. Another interesting thing about B-52, it did not have to land into the wind like most airplanes, especially commercial airplanes, do today. It had a little control. You could turn so the body of your airplane would go into the wind, and your fuselage is still going straight down the runway. Next, please. Oh, this is about Vietnam. We've heard some already about what it was all about. Our role in it was that we would fly out of these 3 places I mentioned, Guam, Okinawa, and Thailand. And out of Guam, it was like a 12-hour mission. We would fly over the coast and then put on all your gear, your pistols and your flak jackets and all these things that, just in case you got hit, and you would go in and you're only inland for about 30 minutes. And then you would drop your bombs, release them, and come back out and take a 6-hour flight home. At the end of the war, you've heard the dates mentioned. At the end of the war, we had what we called Operation. Wait a minute, I forgot. Anyway, we had an all-out bombing attempt to try to bring North Vietnamese to their knees.
Thunder, wasn't it?
No. Linebacker 1 and 2. Rolling Thunder was one earlier. Anyway, we had all that bombing. B-52 was not meant to go. We bombed South Vietnam protection areas or sites. They were our friends. We would go basically to the south of North Vietnam. We never went up to Hanoi except for early on. The last of the war, we decided we're just going to send everybody up there and bring them to their knees, and it didn't work out. We lost 17 B-52s in 3 days, and they did have a peace accord because of this, but what it basically did was give South Vietnam the south and North Vietnam the north, and after a few years, very few years, the north came down and took the whole place. Ho Chi Minh Trail I mean, Ho Chi Minh people started out, and by the end of it, they actually had the whole country of Vietnam. So did we win the war? No, we lost the war. Next, please. Oh, this is my main aircraft commander. It's a real big deal. I flew co-pilot for 2 years, and then I got to fly aircraft commander for 2 years. That's the guy in the left seat, so I was very proud of that. I'm like the captain on a commercial airplane. Next, please. This is a ceremony I got to go to in SAC headquarters in Offutt, Omaha, Nebraska. It was a big deal. They wined and dined us for about three days and told us how good we were, and then they sent us home to be regular guys again. Next, please. 100 mission experience. They doused you with the fire trucks. My radar navigator and I get celebrated the same day. Next, please. This is when I first made aircraft commander in the left seat. Young kid flying in those days. Next, please. This was in the flight school. I didn't tell you that real quickly. I went to Moody Air Force Base down in Valdosta, Georgia, right out of the college, and this was the highlight of it. We flew something like a Cessna 172 for the first 30 hours, then a T-37, a small jet, and then we got to go to the Northrop made T-38 Talon, and it would go supersonic. What does that mean? What? Goes faster than the speed of sound, right. So very few people in this world have ever got to do that, even though now they have some regular airplanes go over 3 times the speed of sound. Anyway, in a nutshell, can you find the thing why I chose to do it? That's okay. In a nutshell, I was not sure exactly what I wanted to do, and this is the way it worked out for me. I'm very, very thankful because I got to see a lot of great places like these gentlemen have. I was able to have children when I got a GI Bill that I went back and got my teacher certificate. Therefore, I get to come and hang out with you guys from time to time. So, and that was all paid for because I was in the service. Is there a place for you there? Maybe yes, maybe no, but certainly something you'd want to consider. Thank you.
And then let's give everybody a round of applause. And if you're ready to go with your teachers, you can let us know.